Hi there everyone, I've got the next part of our story book, The Miracles of Jesus. Remember last week we had the story of the feeding of the 5,000, where the boy gave up his 5 loaves and 2 fish, and Jesus was able to feed 5,000 people with this small amount of food. Well, now we're moving on from that, and this is the next part. So the book says, "At last the crowd went home. Jesus sat alone on the mountain to pray. Later that night, Jesus looked out over the lake. Splash, crash. The boat was now far from the shore. Tossing this way and that, the disciples were struggling to row the boat, fighting against the wind and the waves. It was still dark when the disciples saw a white figure coming towards them. They were terrified. 'It's a ghost,' they cried. But it was Jesus walking on the water. Jesus called the disciples. 'Be brave, it's only me.' 'Lord, if it's you,' Peter replied, 'tell me to come to you on the water.' 'Come,' Jesus said. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. But he was scared and began to sink. 'Save me,' he cried. Jesus reached out his hand and caught Peter. 'Did you doubt that God would save you?' Jesus asked. As they climbed back into the boat, the wind died down. The disciples were amazed. 'You really are the Son of God,' they said to Jesus. So that was great. So we learned that Peter had faith that Jesus could call him out to the water. But then he looked around him, instead of looking at Jesus, straight on at Jesus, he looked around and saw the waves and the wind, and he got scared. And that's when he started to sink, when he took his eyes off of Jesus. So that teaches us to keep our eyes focused on Jesus, because we can think, oh, this is great, and get caught up at the start where we can do something, and then things come, like the waves come and the wind comes, and it takes our eyes off of Jesus, and it takes us onto the trouble that we see around us rather than fixing straight ahead at him. And if we did that, we wouldn't sink. Isn't that really cool? So we can practice that, practice trusting Jesus when he says we can do something and believe it. So now, let's go and do a little craft. Okay, so for this craft, we can just draw everything we can remember from our story. So, we had the big stormy sea. I'll get a pen that works. Big stormy sea with the big waves. And the big winds was coming in. It was probably raining as well. Let's add all that in. You can take your time over this and make it as wavy as you can. And then we draw the big boat. In the waves. He's in the midst of the water, and then Peter comes out and he starts to walk on the water, but then he starts to sink. So he puts his hand out for Jesus to save him. And you can draw your own boat with all the disciples on it, and Peter and Jesus, the big waves that are coming crashing all round about, and the wind coming in, and the rain. Jesus helped Peter through all that storm, and Peter trusted Jesus, and that's what we have to do. Well, I enjoyed that craft, and I hope you did too. And I've enjoyed making these videos for you guys. next week we're going to be in church and I'm going to have Sunday school. So if you're free and you're able to come, I will really look forward to seeing you all. But don't worry if you can't. I'll maybe catch you another time. Bye everyone.